hours before he has to go to his next meeting. So with that, welcome, Dr. Casey. Thank you very much for coming.
Let me be here. Let me just say I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here in Nicaragua. This, I think, is my 79th or 80th trip to Nicaragua, so I've been here many, many times. I love to come to Nicaragua. What I want to do today, and this is not an academic presentation like I would do in my class. It's not theory, it's reality. I want to share with you what I see happening in the United States. What has caused our crisis, and I will focus on the banking entities. I had the opportunity to be a banker for about 7 years in the United States, and I will share with you what I see happening in the banks in the United States. I also had an opportunity to do this presentation at a local bank, and I had some really good insights from that group also on Tuesday. So, I don't know if any of you ever had a chance to see the George Clooney movie called The Perfect Storm. All of a sudden, all the weather forecasts, the conditions were just right, and the ship sinks. I was doing a class last summer, International Management. And I told my students, I said, you know, maybe this could equate to the perfect storm if we start having major banks fail. I finished up my class, and I had come back down to Central America. I was in Panama on a mission trip, and my youngest daughter was with me. And she said, Dad, did you hear? They just had a major bank fail in the United States. And I said, really? And she said, Dad, that's that perfect storm. So I use this because I think what happened in the United States, and I will share with you why I think this is really the perfect storm. And I said, are we experiencing the perfect storm economically, or has it already hit? It has already hit. Now, let's look at what got us into this crisis. The dollar. The value of the dollar is hitting historical lows. That started a part of the problem. We have one of the highest national debts we've ever had in the United States, and it's getting bigger. You've heard about the stimulus package. Additional bailouts for banks. The debt is growing and growing and growing. We've had a very high negative balance of trade. And all of these things were coming together to start this perfect storm. The war in the Middle East. We're spending billions and billions of dollars on the war in the Middle East. We thought we might be able to get out of there in a year or so. I don't know if that'll happen or not. It takes a lot of money to support that war. Now, again, record oil prices. That's helped also contribute. Now, even though they've stabilized, they've come down. But during this time, it started that perfect storm. Companies were spending so much more of their budget on fuel cost. It started the downward trend. Oh, the mortgage loan meltdown. When will we get out of this? It will be at least the fourth quarter next year, if not the year after, before we get out of the mortgage loan meltdown. And I'll tell you why that's true. We have some loans coming up that are called Alt-A's, and I'll tell you what those are in a few minutes. They're scary. We have some ARM loans, which will start increasing interest rates year, 2010, 2011. And there are a lot more of the Alt-A and ARM loans than subprime loans. So it'll be a lot worse than the subprime. It's coming, folks. It's going to hit. Unemployment. 2.6 million jobs were lost in 2008. Sounds pretty bad. But there are 5.3 million people drawing unemployment in the United States today. Now think about this. 2.6 million jobs were lost, and we currently have 5.3 million people drawing unemployment. Now, those people that are drawing unemployment may be drawing $200 a week, $300 a week. Now, what's happening to them? They're losing their homes. They're losing their cars. They're unable to make their credit card payments. The crisis gets worse. Automobile companies. A few years ago, and all of you remember this, the largest company in the world was General Motors. It was the icon. The auditors a few weeks ago said after completing the audit of General Motors that they will not survive. We put billions of dollars into General Motors already. predict they will not survive. Now, is that scary? Yes, it is very scary. Now, what I think will happen is they'll reorganize. They'll go through bankruptcy, reorganize. They will get out of the union contracts, and they'll probably come back as a stronger company. But that was an icon in the United States. As Walmart today is the largest corporation in the world. It once was General Motors. Scary. And, of course, Chrysler's struggling also, and Ford will be next. Airlines. I think they'll be the next company that'll come up and say, we need help. It's coming. Bank failures. Last year we had 25 banks that failed. As of last Friday, we've had 17 fail this year. So what that shows is that we're well ahead of last year's bank failure. More banks will fail this year, I predict, by far than last year. And I will show you a chart in a few minutes that will scare you. And it's from the FDIC. Again, I have a lot of data that comes right from the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and some of the information is scary. Ginnie Mae and Fannie Mae had to be taken over by the federal government. They're now asking for more money. The home loans that they have are bad. They found that the values that they thought they had were not there. And I'll talk about what happened with appraisals in a few minutes. And that now has got Ginnie Mae and Fannie Mae into a lot of troubles. And again, they're asking for more money. They're out of money. They had huge losses last year when they reported their fourth quarter earnings, 2008. Merrill Lynch, Lehman Brothers, AIG, the largest insurance company in the United States, now asking for $30 billion additional dollars. Now that's $30 billion additional dollars. It's scary, folks. IndyMac was the third largest bank in history to fail, and that failed while I was in Panama on a mission trip. And that's when my daughter said, Dad, your prediction was right. But then it got worse. Washington Mutual, the largest bank ever to fail in the United States. Now remember, Washington Mutual and IndyMac were buying these subprime mortgage loans in large volumes. Citibank, Bank of America are certainly in trouble. You know, will they nationalize them? I don't know. There's talk about that. Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, said, I don't intend to nationalize them at this time. Just with that statement, the market did come up a little bit. The government had converted the debt to Citibank from a debt to an equity position. They own about 36% now of Citibank. However, some good news. And there won't be much good news that I'll get to talk about today. When Bank of America and Citibank reported their January and February earnings, they made some money. And guess what happened to the stock market the last couple days? My retirement looks a little better. It actually come up. So that's some good news. Will that hold? We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Can't really make a decision just based on 2 months. We had our presidential elections. That was something that certainly contributed to our I think, the feelings of the people economically. We have put a lot of hopes in a new president. And here's a big one. Companies still are not able to obtain financing in most cases. And that's certainly a major issue that we have in the United States right now. Banks are not releasing the monies, the TARP monies that they receive from the government. They're just not making loans. And I'll talk some more about that in just a few minutes. But this is kind of what got us where we're at today. And if you look at overall, the GDP fourth quarter in the United States was down about 6%. So last year was a tough year, but it's still predicted this year will be worse in the United States. 25 banks, again, failed in 2008. I mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again because this is a key point. With 17 failing already this year. And I'll repeat this several times because I think this is a very important issue. Now, let's look at who's laying people off. Walmart's the largest corporation in the world. They're still doing, their earnings are still strong. Their stock is still good, but they laid off 1,000 people. Now, part of that was due to people not wanting to relocate. I have a lot of good friends at Walmart, and so it's not that they're not doing well, but they did have a layoff, and that did certainly shake some people up. IBM, an icon. Motorola, an icon. Layoffs. Google, layoffs. Microsoft, and all of us that have computers in here are running probably a Microsoft system unless you have an Apple, laid off over 5,000 people.